I'm going to run the Veeam backup for Outlook for Office 365, now called Microsoft 365. And what you got to do is go to veeam.com, log in, and then there's a download section for downloading the file that you see here, which is the Veeam backup zip file. When you extract the Veeam backup zip file, you have several different options for backing up. If you choose this top one that says 365, that's for Office 365, now called Microsoft 365. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. Just need to check to accept the terms. And by default, you're going to see all three options here. You see Server, Console, and PowerShell. If you don't need the PowerShell, you can uncheck that one. I'm just going to go ahead and choose it and choose Install, which will install all three different options. Once that's done, we'll walk through the backup portion of my current Outlook, which is being hosted at Microsoft 365. As you can see here on the left-hand side, it's added some icons after it finished, and now the application is done. This top option here shows the Microsoft 365 icon, which I'm going to launch. And the file off to the left that we see here, I'll move it over. That's for PowerShell. So I'll double-click, and we'll get that started. I'm in a Windows 10 computer logged in with administrator credentials. So you can see by default, it's going to choose the 127.0.0.1, which is itself, which is my own computer. And it's going to use my session authentication credentials to run the authentication portion. So I don't have to actually type in anything here. If you don't have administrator access, then you'll be prompted for username and password. Now it's saying that the unlicensed product can protect up to 10 users. Would you like to install a license now? I'm going to choose the unlicensed for now, but if I did want to install the license, I would click yes, and it prompts me for the license at this time. I can click install, locate the license, and then go ahead and add that in. Now I'm going to cancel that. And next I'm going to choose to add an organization. All I want to do is Exchange Online, but if you want to do SharePoint and Teams, you can do that as well. If I hit the drop down, you can see hybrid or on-premises. I'm just using 365. Now, here's where you can choose whether you're using the access for Office 365 using Azure AD or just a simple username and password. It's a little bit easier if you just choose the basic authentication to get in. However, if you've got a certificate, I'll go ahead and show you this. If you've got a certificate, then you can choose that here and go ahead and install. I don't have any of that. I just want to basically set this up as a simple user. So I'm going to choose the basic authentication, and here I'll put in my username, which is my default email address, and my password. Now we see it's connecting to everything as long as you put in the correct email and password. And once again, it has to be the default email, which would be the same as your default reply address. And we're successful with everything except for the check application impersonation. And you can see that it's trying to grant me that impersonation role. And you can see that it failed on the grant impersonation that it was trying to add after failing in this first option here. Since we can't move on until we have that impersonation role, we need to go into Exchange PowerShell to fix it. Now I'm back at the desktop, and what I want to do is I want to right-click on my Start button and choose to open up Windows PowerShell as the administrator. And once I'm logged in, I need to connect into Office 365. The first command I need to put in is to set-executionPolicy RemoteSigned. Otherwise, none of these commands will work properly. And that's done. And all these different commands I'm going to put in the comment section, so you don't have to worry about writing them all down. Next, I'm going to get the credentials, which is going to prompt me for my username and password. So I got to put in my administrator username and password. And once I enter that, I should see a command prompt, which I do. If you get an error, it could be you put in the information incorrectly. Next, I have this really long command, which once again will be in the comments section, that will connect me to Microsoft 365. I'm being redirected, which is fine. And now I need to import the session, as you see here. And once again, we see that I have a command prompt and ready to go. And the last thing we need to do is put in the new dash management role assignment, and we see it's going to add application impersonation. So you're going to remove the user.name@domain.com and replace it with your administrator. And after we know that that was successful, we can go ahead and go back and rerun that installation. We should no longer get that impersonation error. I've rerun the installation for organization, and you can see now that I've gotten past the application impersonation role, and I can click Finish. And now I can right-click and choose to add to backup job. And we'll put in the name, however you want to describe it. Click Next. We'll click Add, Users. And now it's loading a list of users. I've added the one user I want, so I can go ahead and click Next. Now, if I want to exclude any objects, I could do that here. So if I could click Add and click Users and Groups, I can choose to exclude objects. So that way, if I chose a group, for instance, and I wanted to exclude some of those objects from the group or some of the users, I could do that without having to make changes to the group. So now we see the backup proxy information is going to be the local computer itself. So we can see that I've got 732 gigabytes free of 931 gigabytes. Now click Next. How often do I want to run this job? I'm just going to choose to run it once. So I'm just going to uncheck all that. Next, I'm going to choose to start the job when I click Create, just because I want to do it one time. And there goes the job. So now it's running. And when it's all done, we'll take a look at how to do a restore. We can see here our job was a success. And you can see if there's any errors down here. It looks like everything was just fine. Next, I need to go back to my original installation files. I need to install the Veeam Explorer for Exchange, so that way I can see what got backed up. So I'll just accept all the terms and just run through the default installation, which just takes a few seconds. And now that's done. I'll go back into my Veeam. And I'll go up to here where it says Explore, and I have the drop down. It shows my backup there. So I'll click on that, and we see Explore is popping up. And there is my backup. And look, there's all of my different folders. And what I can do is I can go down, say, to my inbox, for instance. Let's say I want to restore one of these. Here we have a house that's back on the market, email that I'd like to restore. So just right-click and choose to restore to my email address. It's validating credentials. Then it prompts you for the authentication method, and we click Restore. It's now restoring. And you can do this with folders. You can do this individual files, calendar items, contacts, whatever it is that you want, and it will restore that. And I can see in my email that it was successful. So that is how we install Veeam for Office 365, how we get past the errors, and how we restore it after we've run a backup.